Hi everyone, it's Mike with Foster DevOps, and today we're going to be continuing our Backstage series. So in today's video, we're going to be starting to deploy our Backstage application to Docker. We've set up the SSO, we've set up the GitHub to connect to Backstage, and now we've ran Backstage locally with the Yarn command line tool. And it's working, and should we just be able to go to production right now? It's going to work the same in production as it does locally, right? If we just run that yarn dev command, well, that exists only in our dreams, and it's very far from the truth. Running Backstage in a production environment will come with a slew of new issues and unique problems. However, containerization is going to solve many of the problems. It's going to help us run the code on different machine environments, and it will also help us ship the code to all of the different machines that it might be running on. The initial Backstage application comes with a Docker file included that has a multi-build option as well through the Backstage documentation. I'm going to run through both ways of building the Backstage container, and I'll go through the first initial Docker file, then we'll build the container, and finally we'll run the Backstage image. There are some requirements for your machine. We will need to have a local container runtime like Rancher Desktop that is going to give us the ability to run Docker containers locally. Obviously, you need the Backstage code repo on your local machine, and we also need the Docker command line. Now that we have our requirements set and we have a base understanding, we can go into the Docker file and see what our code is doing, and I can explain some of the steps and the necessary things we need to run for our application to be able to be containerized. So in a terminal, I have my Backstage repository, and I'm just going to open my favorite editor, NeoVim, and our Backstage Docker container is found in the Docker file packages/backend/Docker file, and here we can see we start with our from image. So our image is this Node 16 Bullseye Slim, which is a lightweight Node image. And then we also, here we'll have our installation of our Python packages and the installation of SQLite 3, because that's how we've migrated back to SQLite 3. And then we'll have our user in the container run as node, and we'll have this work directory is just the name app, just so we can copy all of our packages and app code into this app. Then we will copy our generated packages from running the yarn install, yarn tsc, and yarn build backend. And then we'll copy here these packages into our container, and then we'll remove the skeleton tar, or after we install all of the packages, we'll remove the tar file, and then we'll yarn install all of our yarn node packages, and then run copy over our app config, and then install more of the back end bundle packages. And then our entry point will be a node entry point, and we'll run our Backstage application. One point about this Docker file is that we'll need to run a yarn install, a yarn TSC, which is the TypeScript compiler. So we're going to compile the code, and then we'll run this yarn build backend. There's also a Backstage command for yarn build image. I'm going to just use the Docker command line to run this. So I have my Docker file. We've just gone through it, and now let's actually build the image. So to start the build, let me just check where I am. Okay, so we have we're in the top level of the repo. We have all of our code and packages here. I will do a yarn install, and I already have my packages installed. Then I will run a yarn TSC. Okay, well, a quick fix will be to get rid of my identity providers. So let me grab these and then go here. Okay. And I actually need to go back and okay, and then I need to do correct imports. And now we should be okay. Sorry about that. So now we have our yarn compile, TypeScript compile, and it does a pretty good job. And then now we do yarn backend build. We can look at the packages /backend /Docker file, and it's yarn build backend. Let's run that. And let's see. Okay, we're successful. And now we can do a Docker build of our container. So I'll do Docker build -t Backstage, and then I'll do the path to my Docker file. So packages /backend, and that should be our build command. And we'll wait for it to build, and we get an error saying we need to have the build kit enabled. So I'm going to go to the beginning and do build kit equal to 1, Docker _ build kit equals 1, and the bundle.tar file is not made, plus packages /backend list. We do have our bundle.tar, and then it's trying to copy. Okay. See Docker build Backstage packages /backend Docker build kit. Okay. It's failing to build with the bundle, so let's make sure it's not getting ignored by the Docker ignore. So we can do a cat.docker ignore, and what this Docker ignore does is it will ignore all of the packages in this file. So all of these. And we see we're ignoring .git, which is what we want. And we're ignoring yarn cache, initial state, node modules, plugins, and .yaml. We do need this, failed to compute cache key, not found. But we do have it. So I'm sure it's because we need to move, let's copy the Docker file to Docker file. And now we should have a Docker file, and then let's Docker build Backstage here. Docker build kit. And now it's going to the correct file path. And what was happening was it was trying to go in the packages /backend, and then in that directory it was going to that bundle.tar, so it was unable to find it. Now that we've copied the Docker file into the top level of the directory, it will actually grab that correct file path. So now we'll wait for this to build. It's right now copying over and installing all of our Yarn node dependencies. So this is going to take a while because the Backstage image is large. So it's going to be building for a little bit. One of the changes I've made to the code is after doing the TypeScript compiler, I have moved the sign-in providers into the app.tsx. And this is mostly because I want to get to the solution right away, and I'll probably have a different solution for fixing this providers for our next video. But we should have our Docker image built, and I can confirm by doing Docker images Backstage, and we have our Backstage image, which is only 901 megabytes, so it's less than a gigabyte. That is smaller than I expected. Now we can do a Docker run -it -p. We're going to run on port 7007, and then our image name, which is Backstage. We'll run that, and we need our Backstage plugin to exist. Let's check the app config and look. Yeah, so we're using our Better SQLite 3. And let's use Better SQLite 3 in the production. In production for right now. And then we'll rebuild with our production, new production, and then let's just build, run it here, and let's see. Okay, so yeah, here we're missing our environment variables. But we do have our .env. And then we should have docker run file .env -it -p. GitHub, okay. .env. We might need to build, yeah, so let's just build our env var. So I'm gonna copy .env to .docker.env, and then I'll go into docker.env, and I'm gonna get rid of this, and then we'll run this with .dockerenv, and we're up and running. So yeah, we're running SQLite right now, but we do have access to our Backstage container, and we're running on that port localhost 7007. So now we have our secrets in the container as well. What we'll need to do to run with and we can create, yep, and everything looks good here. So we successfully have deployed our Docker container locally. We have some kinks to fill out, which I'll fill those out before we go to our next step, which will be deploying it into the cloud. And we have some time before that to first deploy it on a local Kubernetes cluster, but you can also run it on a serverless platform that takes a container and will just deploy that for you. Once we get there, we'll go into it more, but that was taking the Backstage container and deploying it locally using Rancher Desktop's Docker and Backstage. So yeah, please keep the questions coming in. It's always a treat to make these videos, and I hope they're helpful for you all. All right, thank you, and have a great rest of your day. Hey, it's Mike again from Foster DevOps. I just wanted to share something real quick in case you are running your Docker container locally. We're going to show you how to stop it. So you can see here, I have my Docker container running. In another terminal, I'm doing Docker PS. Just Docker PS, and I can see that my Backstage container is running. I'll grab this container ID and run a Docker stop, and I'll paste that Docker ID, the container ID, and we should see my container stop. Yep, so it stopped. Localhost 7007 doesn't work anymore, and we have our terminal back. Hope that helped, and I hope you liked this extra segment. All right, thanks for watching to the end. Bye.